You come to me on this, the day of my daughter's wedding, to ask my opinion on side games. Hey there guys, it's me Malorian, and yes, I am very sick. Every year when the snow starts to melt, it gets in my lungs and it's freaking awful, but there's a topic I really want to get out there, and I also made a promise I'd do at least one video per week, so don't expect any more after this one for this week. I'm going to be suffering for the rest of it. I was thinking to myself, thinking about my channel and thinking that as things go on, it's going to be hard to keep up. I mentioned to my wife and she said, yeah, you think? But anyway, today we're going to be talking about side games, very in vogue right now as we're learning more about Warcaster. On Should Have Boosted, Mark and I gave our hot takes. I was fairly negative. Other channels did their reviews, some negative, some positive. I thought it'd be really good then to cover the whole concept of side games. Just what are they? Why do companies do side games? What are the issues with them? And what are my ways that I would fix them if I had the power? So let's start off with that first one, which is, what is a side game? Well, by definition, if there's a side game, there must be a primary game. So there has to be a company which is large enough where they have this primary game, such that if they make a side game, that side game's not bigger than it because that one's been developed a little bit. So it could really be applied to Games Workshop when they're going to be trying to do things like Necromunda and Blood Bowl and Dreadfleet and all these other things. Or it could be going to Privateer Press, talking about things like Riot Quest, the Monpoc, the Warcaster, the card one, which I always forget, all these different things that are not their primary game. They're not the 40Ks, they're not the fantasies, they're not the war machines, and they're not the hordes, even if you're going to split up those two. So, and I'm going to try, I gotta keep like this so I can try and hopefully get through this whole video without just coughing into you. So if you see a glitch in the matrix and the skip in time, that's because I was coughing my head off. But anyway, let's get back to it. So why do companies actually make these side games? Well, the reason why they make them is I have 4 reasons for that. And the first one is pretty much just to expand, right? They're companies, they want to get bigger. If you're looking at something like Walmart, how are you going to do this? You want to be, okay, we're selling this, let's also sell this, let's also sell this, let's also sell this. The more products I'm selling, the more I can sell. And that's really the idea. If I keep on adding things onto my shelves that I sell and are options, that's going to be really expanding me. Now, I kind of feel that this is a false, real hope, and it's a real dream. I'll get to the issues later, but pretty much looking across the board, whenever there's a side game, that doesn't really happen. I mean, I didn't play the game far enough back to know between Fantasy and 40K what was the side game. Oh, it must have been Fantasy first and then 40K, and obviously 40K did great. So there you go. There's your success story that you want to follow up. But in general, it comes up, it's a blip, and it's gone. And maybe you reinvigorate it with a new side game, which is a release of the old side game, but pretty much it's decreasing as you go out. So, okay, but it's still there. That's why companies do it, because they want to expand, because hooray, capitalism. The next one's going to be, still with that in mind, money, right? The more things that they can pump out, even if they know it's going to be short term. So even if we're not saying that first one is the primary goal, but it's just a short term surge of money, that can be huge, right? All of a sudden that money can be pumped into their primary game, and so they can be developing new models, getting new instruments, dedicating more staff to new projects with maybe more side games, maybe within the main game. But hey, money is important, and if you are selling new things, that's how you get that new money. The next one is boredom. If you have to work on the same old game year after year after year, and remember, some people in these games have been doing it for a decade or more, it probably starts getting a little bit old. And whereas they like to kind of spice things up in the main game, I kind of really feel like that's Hungerford's Riot Quest. All these silly, crazy things that I bet you he would love to do in the main game, Everybody said, no, there's no way you're doing these things. All right, well, we'll do these silly things in RideQuest instead. So, that's not a negative either, because we can hit those two first points about expanding and making money. And if it makes people so they keep their sanity and keep working for the company, well, that's fantastic. So take a little break, do your little thing, come back. Well, the other thing is also you can be using it as a testing ground. Another one of these things is like Company of Iron. When Company of Iron came out, it had some rule differences in there. When Grind came in there, it had some rule differences in there. And so not only is this something where it's a different side game that you can play, but I bet you that the people making it are putting those things in there to see, well, let's see what happens if we did this. And if it's successful in the side game, later on when they do their next edition change, they can be applying that to their main game. So it's kind of like a trial for that as well. So there's 4 reasons why they would want to do it. But why are side games bad? Or what's the issues with them is a more correct term? Well, the first one is the player cap. So the idea that you're Walmart and now you're selling this new product that people are wanting, and so those market of people that you weren't getting before are now coming in. I mean, the problem is that there's only so many nerds and we're already pretty saturated as there is. There's a lot of games out there. There's a lot of competition. And typically, if you are a main game pumping out a side game, where those players come from is your existing player base. So you're not really gaining, for the most part, a whole bunch of new clientele. You're just making your clientele buy a more variety of products. And they might not want to do that. Now, of course, you might draw in more different players that weren't there before, but in general, I'd say you're really selling to the same group of people that you already were before. And the real problem with that is our number 2, which is that there's a money cap. So these players only have so much money. And even though War Machine might be one of their games, they might also play Magic the Gathering. They might also do video games. They might also be in hockey. Who knows what else they are? And if you're now expecting them to do a side game, not only are you basically competing with your own player base, but you're now also competing with their limited resources. So we talked about that money surge, and that's where that can be a little bit questionable, because there will be a money surge. That is going to happen. People like shiny things. Nerds love new things. Just the models, right? If they released Warcaster and said, yeah, there's no rules, there's no game, there's just models, people would still buy it, right? Just because they like models and they like doing that stuff. Maybe not as much, but that's my point. So anyway, there's a money cap. So there's only so far that can go. The next one is simply interest. The fact that, look, it's a very saturated market. It used to be a world where there's only a couple of different games, and which of the 2 or 3 are you really going to go with? Now there's a lot of games going out there, a lot of good ones, and whereas some of these games, they're really blips and they go away, there's a lot of ones out there now that are really competing. And so again, when you already have a player base and a resource base which is oversaturated, and you're adding one more in there, it's just, are you really going to be getting the return for the resources you're putting in? And that's going to be our 4th issue with these side games, which is going to be the resources you're applying to it. You have to realize that any time that a company does a side game, it's not like a click of a button. It's like, yep, let's do RideQuest. There's years of development. There's, months and months and months, and probably years as well, but there's a significant amount of time being spent developing the idea, developing the rules, testing, reformatting, redoing the rules until you have something that can roll out. And that time is money, because the people that you are doing to develop that, you have to pay your staff. And keep in mind that if they're working on this side project, they're not working on your main game. So it's a real risk. And you really have to remember that it might pay dividends, right? You might have something that, like RideQuest, I think is a success story. That's something I can say went over very, very well. But at the same time, some of these other things that you see from the different companies like Dreadfleet and stuff like that, it was a flop. Things just fall down. People had no interest into it whatsoever. And so all that resources that the company, that GW poured into that game, man, I don't know what the return was on those resources, but it might have been like 2%. Like, they did not get back even their investment, I'm sure. So that's something they really have to consider. Now, in order for these games to be successful, the main things that they have to do is it has to look fun, right? If you're going to be throwing this thing out there, you got to kind of really show that, look, this will be a fun game to play. This is probably the main reason why you're going to leave, is because this is going to be fun, 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 fun. But to link them as well, you probably need something that really connects them. That's why things like Riot Quest work so well, because the models are the same in both ways. You're going to buy these models anyway. So if you have the models and you got 20 minutes between games or half an hour or whatever it is, why not play a game of Riot Quest, right? And if you're playing Riot Quest, you're going to pick up a few more models just for Riot Quest, right? So you need that link to your main game to really pull an interest. Maybe the models don't directly go over, but even the themes of it. So that's why I was saying for like Warcaster, if the players could see the model and see those links to the main game, if I'm a Signar player and I can see that some of these models have the little swan insignia on them, I'll see that link and I'm going to buy those models because that's me. That's what I identify as a Signar player. So you need something like that. Now, with those things in mind, and where we looked at why they're doing the side games and the issues with them, what would I say that they should be doing instead? Now, if I look at some of the things that I think did not go so well, like High Command, that's the one, that's the card game there, right? There was a little blip there, but really it was something that nobody was really into. If you want to be playing cards, you're going to be doing, Pokemon or Magic the Gathering or Yu-Gi-Oh, one of the larger card games, right? If there's a larger player base, larger selection of models, better quality product, you're going to be going with that. So you got to be really careful about things like that. But if we're looking at the opposite end, the things that I see are the most successful, things like Riot Quest, I would say one of the largest ones that I see is the biggest success that Privateer could start stealing from is something that GW does over and over and over. And what that is that every single year, technically it's a side product, but really it's a new starter box. And what this starter box is it comes with 2 different factions inside, all the models you need to play, but it's really based on a theme and an idea. And inside the game the box has its own rules, has its own scenarios. I mean, really think of like this whole Oblivion type of campaign, and it came with a box, but not just with the Hermit, but it comes with a starter Infernal army, and it comes with a starter Morrowind army. Like, that would be amazing, right? People would see that, being like, yeah, that's what I want to buy, because not only is it something that they can be investing their time in, if they're bored, if they want to test new rules, they can do that in those scenarios, but it has that perfect link with the old game. And something else that GW does with it as well is that you'll see new sculpts. So if people want to get new looking scouts, marines, whatever it is, gene stealers, you want to get those things from there. Plus it's always a great deal, right? I don't know what the percentages is, but you save a lot of money going with these. And so really, every single time they release these things, it's hugely bought up, right? Even if nobody ever plays the game ever, it is sold out because people want to buy it just for the unique models, the cheap models, and just the cool models. So models is what it really comes down to. And then, sure, they might play it a little bit. They have some terrain they can use in their game. They now have models they can play in their main game. And it's a win-win-win for everybody. So I really wish that the way that Privateer Press would go, I mean, maybe some of the ideas that they're having is too extreme for that. I mean, if someone really wants to do something like Monster Apocalypse, you really can't apply that to the existing rules and do anything like that. I mean, maybe somehow where there's like the buildings and then like the Warjacks and the War Beasts are slamming each other through buildings. I don't know. But that's what I think that they should really be looking at, because it's just the easiest way to be getting us gamers to open up our wallets and buy things that we can easily invest in. And like I said, wins for all around. So there you go. There's my topic on side games, what they are, why they do them, the issues, and what I think that Privateer Press should be doing instead. And otherwise, we'll just see what happens with Warcaster. I hope it's successful. I don't know if it will. Odds are, if I had to bet money, you know which way it's going. But there you have it. Thanks for watching. If you have any, ideas or thoughts on this topic, put them down below, and we'll catch you later. Bye.